Hi, I'm Kristen. This is Scrap Fabric Love, and today I'm going to be starting a project to make a special request quilt for my Uncle Keith, made out of sarongs. For those of you who tuned in last week, thank you for helping me decide which quilt to work on next. So I had asked you guys whether I should work on the quilt for my Uncle Keith, where he'd given me his fabrics that he wanted included in the quilt about a year ago, or focus on a shorter deadline for the Scottish Quilt Show, which has a deadline of the 9th of February. And it was pretty clear after reading the comments and just reflecting based on what you guys were saying and what it all seemed like to me after that, was that I had basically been using the quilt show as a way of procrastinating. I don't need to enter the quilt show. I could enter something I already have. It wasn't like something that I really wanted to do. I was just scared of making Uncle Keith's quilt. And probably without reason, really. He's not a scary guy. I'm gonna, in this video, I'm gonna show you where the idea of the quilt came from, what his kind of ideas were around it, and then I'll show you the fabrics, obviously, and then me kind of starting to cut and starting to work on it. I haven't finished it yet, so there will be a part 2, possibly a part 3, depending how long it takes me. So I'm standing here with my cats. This is where they like to sleep, because these are some of Keith's paintings that I have in my house. But I'll show you some more as I show you the little chat I recorded with him over a year ago when he came to visit and brought me the sarongs that are going to make up the majority of the fabric in his quilt. Okay. Right, so this is my Uncle Keith. He usually lives in Mexico, but he's just been on a trip on a boat in Norway. Is that right? Or a Norwegian boat? No.
A Norwegian boat from Bergen, Norway, and we sailed on that leg of the voyage, we sailed from Jakarta, Indonesia, west over to Mauritius. So that was a three and a half week leg of a much longer voyage across the Indian Ocean.
And you were on that boat in the 70s as well?
Yeah, I was on that same sailing ship, in 1971, at the beginning of 71. I was hired to teach art to a school which had American high school kids on board. So I was teaching as well as crewing, helping to crew, because it's a very labor intensive thing, sailing a square rigged vessel like that.
Yeah, I might try and get a photo and put it up or something.
Yeah,
and I'll put some photos up of Keith as painted everything that's in our house, basically. I grew up with my Uncle Keith's paintings all over our house. He went through lots of different stages of his art, all of it gorgeous, and all of it kind of part of the reason why I found approaching this quilt so intimidating, just because he's clearly so creative and so talented himself. He's been an artist since whenever.
Since I was a kid. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And so he's asked me to make him a quilt, and I guess it's going to kind of commemorate you going on the boat, really. Because the stuff you brought me, you were sleeping with.
Yeah, in a way, it commemorates that a little bit, because the materials, the textiles I brought to you right a few days ago, I used on board as a sort of, instead of a sleeping bag. I didn't need anything as heavy as a sleeping bag in the southern, that close to the equator. So I was just using it as very light bed, what would you call it, bed clothing, whatever.
Yeah, cool. So we'll look at the fabric in a minute, but what are you going to use the quilt for? So you've got a purpose.
I've got a big double king size or that size bed. I just like to have something very decorative on the bed. I can't use it all the time because I've got a dog, right? And she'll be jumping on it. So I use it, when people are over and they'll pass by or through the bedroom to go to the bathroom. So I want something very decorative and beautiful.
Something for people to see on the way to the bathroom during your parties.
Well, there are worse uses for quilts. Let's be honest. But I can't have it on all the time because it'll be very special. You will have made it, and I don't want the dog with her. I love her, but her little paws all over it, you know.
They have a lot of parties in San Miguel in Mexico where he lives, and there's a bunch of artists there, and they have lots of parties.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Cool. So what's all this? So this one, which is this the one? Someone sewed for you into a sleeping bag or something.
Yeah, I've got two. These are basically, I mean, people would very commonly call them sarongs.
Sarong, yeah.
Used by mostly women, although in Malaysia also men would wear it in exactly the same way as women would. And this one, they're cotton. This one is a typical Malaysian design, batik. Some of them are not true batiks, but they're printed, you know, simply printed based on batik design, you know. This is also Malaysian. I think this one, though, came from Indonesian. But you see this kind of textile all over Southeast Asia. And it's a lot of fun to collect them. They're basically, most of them are very cheap. You know?
So these are just ones you had before you left and you just picked them up?
Yeah, there's ones I had mostly partly in storage because, you know, for me they have a lot of uses. Sometimes I use them as a backdrop for a still life. In fact, I think the still life in your studio, you might want to show that. Do I not have a batik and some kind of textile in the background?
I can take a picture of it.
Yeah. So, and I use them for tablecloths. In this case, I throw them as a throw over some piece of furniture.
Yeah.
And I don't mind if the dog jumps on top of these, really. But if it's made into a form of a quilt by you,
then you can't sit on it.
Then she cannot do that. No way. She'll have to just abstain from that. So there's a number of different. I have no idea how Kristen is going to integrate very unlike designs and color, ranges on these, but you'll figure it out.
Yeah,
right?
I'll figure it out. Yeah, we did look at some. We looked at some quilting books online before, and he likes sort of improv, sort of modern. So nothing super traditional and piece.
No,
right?
no.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a modern, or as I call it, maybe postmodern. Even if it feels a little bit ironic, that's even better. Yeah, I have a quilt, but I'm using it ironically.
You're using it ironically, okay. Right. And we decided in the cafe earlier that the back is going to be some version of a Norwegian flag. So I'm probably going to use scraps for that, though. So it's probably going to be lots of different reds and blues.
Yeah, the Norwegian flag shares some character. It's the red, white, blue.
Yeah.
It shares some characteristic with highly iconic national flags such as the UK flag, even the American flag. Basically simple graphic statements, which are the best. And the Norwegian one is especially nice. It's very simple. The Canadian would be another one that's only red and white. But
that would be harder.
That would be probably harder.
It would be harder. I think I can do the Norwegian one.
Okay, we'll stick with that.
And then you can turn the quilt over if you don't like this. You can have the Norwegian flag.
A little bit of variety. It's fine.
Yeah. And then I gave him a gift in this gift bag, which is more of a curtain fabric, but he seemed really taken with the fabric, so we might cut it up and put it in. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I like this design because it's a very straightforward, freehand interpretation of starfish, and I guess repeating pattern of starfish. Obviously, in forms and colors which don't exist in nature, but the quality of the drawing and the coloring is quite free and joyful, so I kind of like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
It has a kind of nautical feeling as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'll obviously document piecing the quilt, making the quilt, quilting it. I don't know how long it's going to take me, and if he'll be back before it's finished, or if we'll have to show it to him on Zoom and then post it to him or whatever, because we're quite a distance away. But anyway, that's what it's going to be, and that's kind of where the idea came from. So I'll give you a closer look of the fabrics here. Looking back at that chat now a year later, I'm feeling a little bit silly for feeling so intimidated. Basically, what I did was latch on to the terms he used, postmodern and ironic, and got a bit confused. And then also just looking at all the very varied fabrics. And then he's like, how about use the gift bag? And then when we were in the cafe, which of course was not recorded, he was like, could we use a flag on the back? And he wanted like a real flag. And I was like, no, that's not the kind of material we're going to make a quilt out of. So we sort of changed that a bit. But there was just so many elements to it. And then he had used those kind of terms. And then he's, the creative one in the family. And I just got in my head about it. I'm pretty sure I'm not the first quilter who's kind of gotten themselves unnecessarily stressed over a special request quilt, but maybe I've dragged it out a bit longer than most. So it's definitely time to properly get started. Right, so there's nothing for it but to start. So these are the 3 main bits of fabric that he gave me. This is the gift bag that he wanted included as well. I'm going to set that aside for now, see what I can do with that later. Right now, what I think I'm going to start with, just as an easy place to start, is to extract as much plain black from this one as I can, so that it can, if I wanted like negative space or a background fabric for anything, I could use that. I did think about just cutting this into little pieces and having different, colors and things. And I might still, this bit might still become like a strip, so like it's all yellow and there's no black. But for now, I think there's a fair amount of black that I could get out, and I could still use these pieces somewhere else if I wanted to do applique or something. So that's what I'm going to start with. It's not a very well-formed idea yet, but we got to start somewhere. So that's what I'm going to do. And there is also no rhyme or reason as to why I'm going to do it the way I'm going to do it. So, right. Okay. Just do it. Just do it. In fact, I might cut this whole border off now that I'm cutting, or edge, or whatever it is. And we'll set that aside to maybe use somewhere. Right. Now I want it the other way around. Left-handed, guys, left-handed. And I'm not cutting it to this size because I know what I want to use it for. I'm just cutting it to this size because it's as big as I think I can get without encroaching on these little colorful bits. And maybe we'll go this way. Right, so I might use this bordery bit somewhere. So I'm thinking cut around it a little bit. I might cut closer later, but... So I cut around the whole edge that looked a bit like a border, leaving a little bit of space, and then chopped up the rest of it so that I could have the black background pieces that I was talking about. So I kind of have the whole border, and then taking out these side elements, those yellow bits, and then just taking out as many big chunks of black. Obviously in cutting I got little bits, so I've got another pile for crumbs, and then I'm just trying to vaguely cut rectangles and squares with the sort of florally decorative motif that's there. I don't have a pattern, I don't have a plan. For me, kind of just, I guess, breaking it down into the elements of the fabric of what's there is what I'm hoping is going to get me started with a germ of an idea, because it certainly wasn't coming just staring at the whole pieces of fabric together. So I'm kind of breaking it down into what's the fabric made of, and then I will put it back together, I guess. Is that ironic? Maybe that's the ironic bit of the quilt. We'll see. Okay. So I have a little pile of black. I mean, not a huge amount of background fabric, but some, and some crumbs. I've got a whole pile of these. Don't know yet if they're going to be applique or if they're going to be part of some other blocks, but I don't feel right now like I want to chop into them, so I think that was probably the thing to do. And then I've got these. This is one cut up. Now I need to cut up the other two. Oh, and I still have this great big huge border piece. So I still have tons of this that could be subdivided if I needed to. We'll see what we do. So I approached cutting this second sarong in a similar way. I was kind of cutting some strips of the busier bit of fabric. I cut out the bit where there's like a little label, and then sort of divided this sort of busier section with the less busy section. So I've just kind of got two large bits of fabric and then these other little strips and elements that kind of look like, one of them looks more like flowers and the other one's more of an overall print that looks more like a batik kind of thing. So I've got these different elements. And then there was another conversation with Keith, again off camera earlier, about how his ceiling in the room he wants to put it in has got a kind of wooden chevron design on it. And he was half talking about trying to mimic that. So anyway, this is me experimenting, I guess, by cutting some of the strips into a little parallelogram shape that was in one of my AccuQuilt die cubes. And I'm just cutting the shapes, and then I found this background fabric, which is like a Moda grunge. It's like a purpley gray, and I decided it went with most of the fabrics because I did need some other kind of a background fabric. I strangely had a whole lot of this. I don't usually buy fabric in this kind of a large amount. It must have been, I can only guess it's from when I started quilting and I thought you needed a great big stash or something like that. I don't even remember when I bought it. Maybe from a quilt shop shutting down or sale or something. I don't know. But anyway, I decided I might as well cut into it. Maybe I was thinking of using it for a quilt back when I bought it. I don't know. Anyway, it's been sitting there a while, so why not? And so I cut some background parallelograms of this as well. I didn't even really watch a video about how you sew them together. I just decided to have a go at that and see how it turned out. So that was all I was doing with those. Again, no real plan so far. Right, so this little section is where we got to last night. And also deciding to kind of keep that for the moment, the bordery thing, to do something with, maybe not. So still don't know really where I'm going with this, and that is tiny. I'm not going to do the whole quilt like that. It's going to be probably sections of things. So I'm going to try something else tonight, night 2 of working on Uncle Keith's quilt, and we'll see where we go from there. Okay, so night 2, I'm still a bit in a brainstorming mode. So I randomly sewed together the strips that I'd cut the gray grunge parallelograms out of, with the idea that I might overlay them over some of the sarong fabric. So I'm cutting up some strips, some sections out of this third red sarong, similar way to what I did before, and then just playing around with what I could do with it here. So I basically made a strip set using the decorative black bits from the first sarong and then these 2 strips from the red one. And then I may or may not overlay that grunge sort of cutout strip from that. I don't know. Haven't decided yet. So this is basically me just continuing to have a play with the elements of what's in the fabrics and seeing if I could do anything kind of cool with them. I still don't know if this particular bit is going to do much, but we'll see where we go from here. So I've done a couple things. Still don't know where it's going. But I feel like I need more gray and maybe denim. Why do I always say denim? Maybe denim. I don't know. Right. But I got these in a quilting magazine. It doesn't even say on the envelope which one it was. I can't remember. But it's just some foundation paper piece. But it's one I could get easily. I don't know. They were probably for some project in the magazine. So there's a few that are like these 3 triangle thingies. There's a few like flying geese templates. And then what else? And then there's these diamondy thingies. And I'm thinking I'll just sew them all up with scraps and a bit of fabric, and then I'll figure out what to do with them later. And that'll give us a few more chunks to work with, and then I can start to get a better idea, because right now it's still just a hodgepodge of what? So I'm going to cut some gray strips to try and use with this. I might, I could put something like, not that one because that's too small, but I could put something like that in the middle somewhere and make a block like that. Or, I've got other scraps of some of these the bits that I've already cut. I have little scraps that I could use. So that's the next plan, I think. So I might not film all that because this is going to be so long. So I'm probably not filming myself doing this. If you don't know how to do foundation paper piecing, I have other videos with like step-by-step how I go through it. And I will link to them in the description. My method is a bit more haphazard. I do not always cut the patches to the right size. I just go at it and trim it later. So you'll see that if you go and look for those. But I'm just going to sew these all up with random bits, and then I will show you what I've got at that point. So these were my first few test blocks, which I actually quite liked. So I decided to keep going, sewing the blocks and decide what to do with them later. I did pull out my box of denim scraps just for a bit of variety from the grunge as the background fabric. I don't know, it seemed like the thing to do. Why not add denim whenever? I'm also trying to back up my computer at the same time. That's why I keep staring at the computer there. This is a terrible angle and my sewing room's a complete mess. Next time I might show closer up kind of sewing the blocks or whatever, depending on where we go with the quilt top. But the basic point of showing you all this is that to, I guess, demonstrate that I'm just throwing everything in the kitchen sink at it and we're just going to see what comes of it. So I don't have to know where it's going to go in the end in order to make a start, which is advice I could have given myself a year ago, quite frankly. But anyways, we are where we are and we have now started and I feel much better. And I'm kind of liking where it's going at the moment. Whether it's postmodern or ironic yet, I don't know. We shall see. Okay, so here's where we are after week 1. It doesn't seem very far, but I feel like I've been sewing a lot. But anyway, so I've got these blocks, these kind of diamondy things that I've been doing with some of the pieces that I cut already, and then some other random FPP blocks. Those are looking a bit more traditional, so I guess we got to mix it up to make it postmodern, quote unquote. I've still got this chevron-y section that you saw me do quickly. Still got this bordery piece, don't know what to do with yet. And then I've got at the bottom here, I've just been piecing the crumbs because I don't cut the fabric in any kind of efficient way for the FPP. So I end up with bits and pieces. So I'm just sewing them all together. So that's the background. And this is some of the other bits. So they might end up somewhere in it. So we'll see where we go with all of this next week. Hopefully I'll have more progress. I'm hoping, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm hoping to get the quilt top done in this coming week and then maybe quilt it the week after would be ideal. And I think I've got, a kind of a direction, vague direction still, but a little bit more of a direction now. So hopefully I can go faster. This week I was kind of just trying a bunch of random stuff out. So yeah, that's where we are. So I hope you enjoyed that. Still looking a bit chaotic. I still don't know how it's going to turn out, but I've got a little bit more of a germ of an idea than I had when I started, which is something. So if you would like to see how Uncle Keith's quilt turns out and you've not already subscribed, please do subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much for spending time with me. Bye. If you would like to see more of my Uncle Keith's art, I will put the link to his website in the description.